Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. Whether you believe that or not, mate, it's coming from a legit source. This is coming from a gentleman called Colonel Karl Nell. Karl Nell. I'm sure that's Superman's dad, isn't it? A retired US Army Colonel, Karl Nell, discusses government disclosure of UAP. Right? People have been sending me this all the time over on Twitter last week, but I didn't do like my thoughts on it because I'd been away, as you can clearly see from my suntan, right, which people mentioned on my last video, left, right, centre. I went to Ibiza, and not like the clubbing scene, although it would have been nice. I had the kids. So it was like the family area, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing. You should go check out the photos I put up on Instagram. Anyway, before we get into this talk, okay, which looks absolutely amazing information, okay, there's another tweet that keeps on being sent my way. These last couple of days, mate, I'm being bombarded. Honestly, I don't know why I say that, but it does happen quite often. When there's something big, major news that comes through, people bombard me on Twitter. And I've been sort of dismissing it because I'm like, guys, have you not seen that I've created a video about this a few weeks back? But this thing keeps on rising up, right? It started happening back, I think it was April 2023, about the Los Angeles family that saw shadow beings in their back garden, right? These shadow aliens. And I sort of thought I put it to bed once upon a time, and then somebody did some sort of forensic analysis on it and everything like that, and I thought I put it to bed again. But it's just gone on to News Nation, and I think maybe somebody else is talking about it now. It goes on for 1 minute 44 seconds, so we're just going to quickly watch this before we jump into this the conference, all right? Because I think that they're going over the same thing. I'm not too sure, but mate, I'm telling you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like people, 6 people are sending me this left, right, center. Okay, so let's quickly take a little look.
We can take a video and look at whether or not there is an artificial artifact added to it or not. And in this case, we can definitively say, to a degree of scientific certainty, that this entity, this thing in the video, is there in the physical reality in which the Kenmore family is also there.
This is what I've said all along. This is what I said, right? And people were saying that I'm stupid. And one thing that upset me, didn't upset me, I was just like, there's a guy, I can't remember what he's called. He's a really famous YouTuber. He's called something Penguin. Penguin. It does something to do with moist penguin, or I don't know. But he titled one of his videos, "The Worst Proof of Aliens Ever," or something like that. And I was gutted because I think that guy's an absolute genius and I love his channel, love his videos. But he was so against this, right? But what I noticed throughout his whole video, he was saying, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. And when you think that this and this is so bad, it's so bad. But not once throughout his entire video did he have an explanation for what it actually is. Okay, what is it then? Because there's clearly something there, right? Right, so I had to say that because I was absolutely gutted. I was like, oh, really? And I'm finding that with this. I've gone into... there's videos that I've done on this. The first one, I think when it just came out and I was talking about it, I was like, this is mental, mate. And then a second one that I broke it down and I started slow-moing frame by frame. I think, and saying exactly what they're talking about. I think they're using the same footage as I used to break it down, right? So anyway, let's carry on.
This is so critical because you can clearly see through the slots in the fence that there is a leg motion moving from the right to the left side of the screen.
Yeah.
And clearly it is behind there. So this isn't just like a head floating in space. This is a head of that is somehow that does not have full opacity, that the opacity of the head of the shadow is only at about 33% opacity versus a normal shadow, which would be at 100% opacity, or an object in the screen, which is at 100%. And this isn't anything that you did. It's just what you were able to determine, that this shadow being, or this being in the shadows, possibly creating its own shadow.
That's right. Because like I said to everybody in my last video, shadows just don't occur in the middle of nowhere, right? They don't just pop up. Here's a shadow, a 3D shadow. I can look around like I'm in virtual reality, right? Shadows have to hit things, right? They have to hit things. This doesn't hit anything, guys. So whether you believe it's an alien or not, you have to admit that there's something there, right?
Or smoky filter or cloaking technique is not only cloaking itself from the people there, but cloaking itself from the camera itself, in that it's minimizing our ability to identify pixels inside of that shadow.
It's pretty much what I confirmed on the last one, what I said. It's definitely something there. And I every time I react to this, people send me video clips. Ben, why aren't you talking about the truck? Why aren't you talking about the image of the truck? Why aren't you talking about the truck, where they go in the back garden, they see the alien in the truck? Right, I've seen your videos, I've seen your photos. I just can't make out what it is you're looking at. You're putting outlines on stuff, and I can't make it out. So I've not done it. That one there, I can make out, and I can talk about, and I can dissect. But the other videos you're sending me, I just can't, I can't quite see it. All right? Anyway, so let's have a little look at this conference, okay? Remember, retired U.S. Army Colonel Karl Nell discusses government disclosure of UAP. Right, okay. Let's take a little looky. Someone's tweeted me, but it's bad. What's the word? Quality. So I found it on YouTube. Okay, check this out.
And I'm very lucky to have Karl Nell here joining me for this conversation. Karl, thank you so much for coming. And Anthony and AJ over at SALT, thank you so much for hosting this. So Karl, maybe to begin, can you share a little bit about your background, who you are, and perhaps why people should care what you say?
Sure. Well, thanks, Alex. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. And it's a fantastic event, and I'm glad.
Aerospace executive, senior military officer of corporate strategist.
To see a large bunch of folks that stuck it out to the end for this talk. So I was fortunate. I had a 4-year ROTC scholarship to Penn. I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering. The Army sent me overseas to do signal corps engineering projects. So I did a lot of strategic comm projects in Europe. I ended up working in Army Space Command. I commanded a satellite ground station, war trace to the Joint Chiefs. I spent some time at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The Army ultimately sent me to get a master's in mechanical engineering, a master's in strategic studies, graduate work in computer science. I was on track to stay in, but I decided that I wanted to pursue more of a technical career. So I got out and ended up working at Bell Labs, which was a fantastic place. Unfortunately, I was there during the trivestiture that folks may be familiar with, where the company got split up. I left Bell Labs and ended up working in Lockheed Missiles and Space. I worked.
Jesus, this guy's done 20 careers in the space of one lifetime, or not even half a lifetime. Bloody hell. Well done.
At Northrop Grumman. I've ran strategic technology programs in the defense industry, worked for a lot of the three-letter agencies, ultimately was a deputy chief of staff or deputy CTO for a $2 billion company. I was a vice president general manager of a Northern Virginia-based R&D firm. I stayed in the military, in the reserve. I commanded at every grade level through brigade. I was fortunate to stand up the Army's newest expeditionary MI brigade. I was the deputy chief of staff for a combatant command.
All right, mate, easy. Can you do this?
Ultimately, this experience sort of combined to give me the opportunity to come in and advise Army Futures Command, the largest reorganization in the Army Reserve since really 1973, on how the Army could be more effective. And my last assignment was involved with the UAP task force, which maybe is the most apropos.
Oh my God. Like, this guy is completely dedicated to his field.
For this discussion.
And so, Karl, here's the million-dollar question. Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Here we go.
So non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And they're unelected people.
There you go. There you go. There you go, mate. Right. There you go. If he says it is, mate, it is. So all those people out there are saying aliens don't exist. Have some of that.
People in the government that are aware of that.
And so, Karl, that is quite a bold statement. I'm wondering, and I'm curious, how confident are you that that is true?
There's zero doubt.
And Karl, what evidence have you seen? What was the moment where you developed this level of conviction? Because what you're saying is extremely consequential and very important. And I know that a lot of people here even perhaps may not believe that statement.
Right. Well, probably a better way to ask that is, how can the folks in the audience come to the, a common understanding of what this phenomenon is? And so there's sort of two tracks here. One is from first principles, and another is actually from the data. So let's take a look at the data. So we can look at some folks that have very high level access to information, like Paul Hellyer, who is the defense chief for Canada, has come out and said the same thing. We can look at Ham Eshed, the head of Israel's, or former head of Israel's Space Force, has said the same thing. Chris Mellon, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Intel, SAPCO, has essentially said the same thing. Lou Elizondo has said the same thing. David Grush has said the same thing. David Grush cleared for presidentially level material. So you're looking at people that are in a position to know this, and they're telling you the same thing. You could take a look at the Gang of Eight in the Senate and in Congress. So there's two members of the Gang of Eight, Marco Rubio and Senator Chuck Schumer, that signed up to the UAP disclosure amendment last year that basically said they're not being told the truth and we need to push forward on that.
See, right, okay. So I've got to try and play devil's advocate. Most of me now is saying, see, I told you, we were right. We tried to say all along, aliens do exist. They're out there. We are not the only ones. He said, this person said it, this person said it, this person said it. Look at his, look at his history. He's very credible, right? There's that. And I could quite easily sit here and say, so all those people that are still saying, no, there's no such thing as aliens, you're in denial and there's no hope. I could quite easily say that now. Or by playing devil's advocate, okay? Because we have to. Are they just saying that? Is this like an ulterior motive? Are they making this up, like planted, to prepare us for something, or to try to, do you know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. That's all right? But he seems a very, like, he's got integrity, okay? Would you come up and say something like that and potentially ruin all of that history, that work, that experience of history and credibility? Would you just wash it all away because you've been told to say certain thing? I don't think so. I think this is legit. They clearly know something, and now it's all coming out.
So that's sort of an overview of some of the data. From a first principles standpoint, what's so unusual about this realization? There's billions of stars in the galaxy. Life here evolved in 500 million years, which is basically a blink of an eye. We've found planets around every star that we've looked at.
This is he's just echoing what I've been saying for years. It's mathematically impossible, right? He's just echoing what I've been saying. It's mathematically impossible for us to be the only ones.
It's likely that the universe is full of life. If you look at the SETI program in particular, the SETI program has all the same assumptions that you would accept and probably make with respect to this topic, except that they believe that non-human intelligence is transmitting signals here. But at the same time, like, we're not transmitting signals. SETI doesn't transmit signals, and the only signals that are actually broadcast of high enough power into space for somebody to pick up come from broadcast television and ballistic missile early warning systems, which you could argue our technology is moving away from. We're going to satellite, we're going to fiber. Broadcast TV is a thing of the past. And if you get to some state where society is stable, maybe we don't need ballistic missile early warning systems. So the other...
Yeah, hang on. Didn't the president literally make a phone call to the moon? That's another way he failed to mention.
Other guy is probably not going to transmit, but what the other guy may do is come here if that's possible to do, and there's physics models that suggest that may be possible.
And Karl, I mean, what you're saying is extremely consequential, and you've referenced other people that have said the same thing that also have similar credibility. There's similar reasons for why we should believe many of these folks, yet the government itself has not formally disclosed. They've been very reluctant to do that. Why? Why do you think that is?
So there's 6 basic reasons, and this, again...
I think, before he says it, this is my view. 1, it's to protect us, to stop, to not let us worry that we can't control our air, right? Basically, if we can't control alien forces coming into our planet, what can we control? Okay. The second of all, I think, is probably one of the biggest: religion. Okay. I think this has to have some sort of like a ripple effect within religion. However, the good thing about faith and religion, I would imagine, is that you can basically say, well, look, God created everything, right? So if there is aliens, God created aliens.
You could draw this out from first principles. There's a national security reason. There's the lack of a plan. There's the potential for societal disruption. There's the possibility that there's some non-public agreement. There's the potential for misdeeds and the desire to cover up misdeeds. And there's just the basic organizational intransigence and lack of priority that might be associated with the topic. So all these things are factors. The issue is that really the national security issue subsumes all the others. And so there's an opportunity maybe to contract the national security issue, similarly to what was done with nuclear weapons and nuclear energy, such that nuclear energy is not necessarily classified and is available to the public. But lack of a plan and the potential for societal disruption are key ingredients that would prevent any responsible leader from coming forward with information that they don't have the means to address in a responsible way. It would be irresponsible to do that.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you have absolute conviction that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet, that there are factions within our own government that know about this, yet we still don't have a plan, and they may represent a security issue. This may pose a threat to humans, yet you still believe that we should disclose. Is that right?
Correct, right. So there's really three reasons that trump all those others. And those others are basically valid, like I said. So the first issue is the moral right. The government exists for and by the people. And so the nature of reality is fundamentally not government information. People have a right to know the world in which we live, and the pursuit of happiness requires that knowledge. So that's sort of the first kind of overarching philosophical foundation for this. But, as a corollary to that, if there are misdeeds that were done, then they need to be remediated. If there's lack of proper oversight, which is suggested by some of the whistleblowers, that needs to be remediated. So the first issue is the moral issue. The second issue is being in a reactive mode is never preferable to being in a proactive mode. So reactive mode is basically trying to prevent disclosure. But failing that, you might get a situation where you have catastrophic disclosure that creates all the problems that you were trying to prevent. So a more balanced middle path of controlled disclosure is the best way to do this, which is, again, an argument for some amount of disclosure.
Basically, dribs and drabs. Slowly ease into it, right?
And the third part is simply societal advance and global competitiveness. More brain trust needs to be brought into this topic in order to make progress and to improve society. And so all three of those things together trump the 6 other reasons for non-disclosure.
And what do you think happens if we don't disclose? I know you mentioned this idea of catastrophic disclosure. Maybe disclosure may be forced upon us. How do you think about that?
So the situation is usually thought of as a binary state. It's like an all or nothing. And people have sort of argued this. But anybody paying attention realizes the government has already indicated that unidentified anomalous phenomena are real, they're not ours, and they're not our adversaries. The Pentagon has said that. Like, for people that are paying attention, like, that shoe already dropped. So for a lot of people, they think that the second shoe to drop is this is non-human intelligence, and maybe the conversation stops there. Like, the president comes out and says, there's non-human intelligence. The truth is that will precipitate this crescendo of other questions that maybe the government's not ready to answer.
Because they just don't know. They don't know.
Will court, if not precipitate, potential negative ramification for society. And so as an example of this, I would actually point to something from the ancient past, the Bronze Age collapse. So Eric Klein, Princeton University, 2015, wrote a very interesting book called 1177 BC, the year that civilization failed. And so this is well known to current scholarship. Within a single lifetime, all of the very effective ancient civilizations of the Bronze Age failed due to a confluence of reasons that are not necessarily fully understood today. So we're talking about Egypt, the Hittite Empire, the Minoan Empire, the Manassean Empire, the Babylonian Empire. All these civilizations failed, never to return, other than, let's say, Egypt. And so these were highly sophisticated civilizations with highly developed infrastructures, highly developed administrative states. They were globalist, in a sense, very similar to today. In terms of the known world, the known Near East, they were economically interdependent. They had both diplomatic ties and commerce ties. And yet these civilizations failed in a single lifetime because of stressors that these civilizations collectively could not address within the time frame. And so if we look at our society today, one might argue that it's similarly fractured, similarly under economic stress, similarly under cultural stress as well.
Oh, mate, this is crazy. You just take for granted that, do you know what? We could be spoken about in 1,000 years or more. We would be known as like the tech era, right? The AI era. Oh my God. We could be we could just disappear. Mate, this is mental. I started to think though that it was a beginning to talk about how maybe alien life interacted with those eras and had some sort of devastating effect, you know?
Well, fractured and fragile diplomatic situation. It mirrors very much this scenario.
Yeah.
And so for a responsible decision maker, that is certainly a factor.
And so I guess when you say that, are you implying that perhaps we as a society may not be ready for disclosure? Or are you saying that we may not be able to defend ourselves against this other force?
This is what I'm saying.
So there's sort of different
That's the question I just asked.
Points on whether people are ready to deal with this phenomenon. And popular culture is kind of infused with this stuff. Roswell became a meme a long time ago. We got programs on ancient aliens, Skinwalker Ranch, all this stuff. I guess I would draw an analogy, though, for people that believe in a certain faith tradition, whatever that faith tradition is, and hold to that and subscribe to that in a very serious and devout way, and sort of pose the question, even for folks of that ilk, and I would count myself as one, if you're confronted with the reality of your religious belief system, like the reality of the metaphysical, an angel, a messenger from God, what have you, that's going to be a sea state change in your way of dealing with reality, right? Even though you already believe it, right? So it's one thing to believe and it's another to know. And I think...
Well, how do you think that we would act? I mean, everyone's different, right? But we have become very desensitized over like horror films, crazy movies we watch, music we listen to nowadays, violence we see on the television, video games, shooting. Like, we have become very desensitized over this type of thing. So if aliens did come down and we saw them face to face, how do you think we would react? I think it would be almost like a division, right? I think some people would be supporters of these beings and like leaving them alone, like they're not doing any harm. And then the other people would be like, this is our planet, you got to go back, we don't want you here, and we're gonna kill you. I don't think there's gonna be a middle ground. I don't know, I might be just talking BS, but this is so interesting, mate. And if you're into aliens and UFOs, paranormal, ghosts, subscribe, mate, because we're going to be looking at so much more on this sort of stuff, okay?
In this context, this phenomena has the potential for an analogous effect both on the individual and on society.
Yeah, but do you think that the phenomena, this non-human form of intelligence, represents a threat to humanity?
So this is a good question too, and some of the other folks have sort of framed things in that light. And I guess I would suggest that...
I think they would have done it already.
If the universe is governed by conservation laws, and it's probably reasonable to assume the laws of nature that we understand apply everywhere. We may have incomplete understanding, undoubtedly we do, of these laws, but they're sort of homogeneous and they apply throughout the universe. And so those laws are governed by conservation rules. There's conserved quantities. And so this reality really forces a Darwinian-type competition in order to survive. And so it's reasonable to assume any other civilization that's evolved has come up through the same Darwinian evolutionary process. So I think it's naive to expect complete altruism until and unless you get to a state of post-scarcity, where you essentially have no physical needs that we're kind of encumbered with in this universe. And so in some sense, it's the economics of the future that are going to determine whether there's cooperation, competition, or some kind of symbiosis, and inform the intention. But to assume either malintent or complete altruism, I think, is somewhat naive.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is it's impossible to know the true intentions of a higher intelligence. We may be competing for the same scarce resources. We may not be, right? We may be almost irrelevant to them, and they may be acting altruistically, although we cannot safely assume that. And
I think if they were going to do something bad to us, they would have done it already. I think they are doing what we try to do, right? We try to go to other planets. We try to find out things. We try to find other civilizations or signs of civilizations or beings. And I think that's what they probably are doing, you know?
So I guess I'm curious. If we continue down this disclosure path, do you believe that disclosure is inevitable?
So, again, people that sort of look at this topic and study it, and there have been some good examinations on this from a historical standpoint, have realized that, like, we're not in really a new state. Like, this sort of disclosure emphasis has come and gone over time. And so this is not the first time we've arrived at this stage. I would suggest that maybe the peak of this current cycle happened last December with the Schumer amendment, and then it got rolled back. It was defeated in the House. And so it remains to be seen, you know, if the process is going to continue. One hopes and can maybe draw a little bit of confidence that maybe this will come around is the colloquy that Senator Schumer and Senator Rounds had back in December. After their amendment got killed, they basically went on the Senate floor and articulated their rationale for the legislation. And I think Senator Schumer, to quote him, almost said it was a travesty that this did not pass. So this is, you know, a bipartisan colloquy on a topic that I guess most people would probably consider fringe, and yet these two senators felt the need to do that and to double down on their desire to see this through.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see maybe a reintroduction of some version of that this summer, with the goal of maybe putting it into the NDAA by the end of the year.
Do you think that it's imperative that the United States leads on the disclosure efforts?
So this is an interesting question too, because this is a global phenomenon, and it's affecting other countries just like the United States. The reporting on this is clear over decades. Other countries have reported this stuff. And not only that, you know, the Vatican has come out and made statements that reference or tangentially reference this topic. So organized religion has a say in this topic as well. So it's really a whole of planet, whole of humanity problem. And so the U.S.
I think it's going to be the case of who's going to tell first. And once one country says something, everyone else is going to be like, yeah, well, we've got it too. We've got that technology too. They come to visit us too. They're our friends as well.
This has got its role to play, but these other countries have their role to play, and it would behoove us to recognize that you know, U.S. action could be preempted by another party, and it would be probably more conducive to work collectively.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I don't fully understand that I'd love to get your thoughts on, Karl, I mean, if we assume that a higher form of non-human intelligence has been visiting this planet, if we assume that some of the statements made by folks like Dave Grush are true, that we have crash materials, and if we assume that those craft that we may have exhibit characteristics that defy our current understanding of physics, it would seem that that technology would provide an incredible strategic advantage to whatever nation ends up reverse engineering it first. And so, to me, that would imply that there is a race happening to reverse engineer this, and that this topic would be a top priority. Do you agree with that?
So I think some of what you say is a reasonable conclusion to be drawn, and I've suggested something similar in past statements. The point here, though, is to go from a pre-disclosure to a post-disclosure world, maybe two stable states that are separated by an unstable middle ground. And so how you make that transition, again, you know, bespeaks to the concern about this catastrophic disclosure. And this has come up in sort of arms regulation too. Mutually assured destruction, however much we don't like it, is sort of a stable kind of, you know, geostrategic regime. You know, the Reagan-era defense shield idea is also a very stable scenario, but to go from one to the other is very unstable.
Yeah.
And so this topic sort of mirrors that.
Yeah. And I know you and I were talking earlier about this idea that in order to really understand the phenomena, it's likely that we have to further our understanding of reality itself. And I guess I'm wondering, I can imagine a future where we acknowledge and we know that there is a higher form of non-human intelligence, yet we still don't truly understand the phenomena. We still don't truly understand reality. And so I guess I'm wondering...
I think that partly as well, it's... Even for me, it is hard to 100%... I know I've said it before. I've said, like, I 100% believe that there's aliens, right? It's very easy to say it. I 100% believe in aliens, right? Which I do, right? But to actually wholeheartedly believe it, and I think it's because we haven't seen it with our own eyes yet. Or for me, I should say. It's more of a gut feeling, like, then there's got to be, like, you know? It's like the rational head in you just says, yeah, it's got to be. I'm 100% believe it's got to be.
Wondering, do you think that we'll ever truly understand what's going on? Or if part of the game, part of the journey, part of life itself is operating in an environment where at least part of it is fundamentally unknowable to us?
So it's a totally philosophical, epistemological question, right? Really about the nature of knowledge itself, right? Like, how can we know what we know and how can we be sure about what we know? I guess personally, I subscribe to the idea that there is an ultimate truth and that humanity being created in the image of a higher power is endowed with the quality to pursue an understanding of that. And so our part of our objective in this existence is to seek that out and try to understand that ultimate truth to a greater and greater degree. And this would be a component of that, obviously.
Yeah. Well, Karl, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. I'm hopeful and optimistic that together maybe we can move the ball forward here and further our understanding of what is really going on, because I certainly agree with you. I think it is very consequential that we figure this out. So thank you again for coming. Thank you again to SALT for hosting us. And thank you all for listening.
That was brilliant. That was so good. And I think this could be yet again another kickstart for more people to come forward and start talking about this type of thing, their own experiences, what they know, basically whistleblowers. This could start off another snowball effect of more whistleblowers. That was so good. What do you reckon? Do you think he's full of S? Right? BS? Do you think this is what we've been waiting for? We need more? But anyway, hold the line, mate. Hold here. Subscribe, because I've got a collection of UFO, UAP videos coming your way. And thank you so much for watching. Just a quick side note, by the way. I got an email, a DM actually, from my fourth wall, the people that I get merch. They've emailed me saying, your subscribers are emailing us about video clips, information, photos and things like that about ghosts, paranormal, aliens, UFOs. I don't ever see those emails. They see them and they don't forward them on to me. That's not part of their thing that they do. They supply merch to you. Okay? They supply my merch to you guys. They don't get involved with emails. The only emails that they see are going to be the ones that, there's general inquiries about sizes, quality, and things like that. Okay? So please, if you're going to send me any information, don't send it through Caspersight.com merch. Send it to my emails or Twitter. My Twitter is Caspersight. My email is caspertube@hotmail.com. Is it? What is it? Hang on. My email is caspertube@hotmail.com. Okay? Those are the two ways of getting hold of me. All right? But anyway, thank you so much. I really do appreciate the support, and hopefully you come back on the next video. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Get the merch at Caspersight.com. Just Rambo it.